Hello there, Mr. Duke Lowrie. Let's do a quick sound check.
How we sound there, Rex Moncrief?
We sound pretty good. Let's go to countdown. Folks, we'll be right back. Well, welcome back, Mr. Duke Lowrie.
Hey there, Rex Moncrief. So, let's just jump right off in it. What do you think about today?
Well, you know, it's kind of interesting because you had done some great show notes and we had all this stuff to talk about, and apparently a few thousand, 100,000, whatever people in D.C. decided to change our plans today, didn't they?
Yes, they did. And no show notes here. We are just going straight off into the abyss on this one.
We are just winging it. So let's see, we've got about 10 people, 13 people watching. Hey, Gina, hope you're feeling a little better. And don't forget to check the dinner. It's still on the stove. I'll be in there in a little bit. So tag and share, get some folks in on here. We are going to discuss for at least a few minutes the events in D.C. and what we think about it, what I think, what Duke thinks. Y'all join in, comment, whatever you want to do.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, look, we need to have dialogue and talk about this thing. I mean, it is, man, you can be on one side of the equation in 1 minute and then on the other side of the equation the next minute on what's going on.
yeah, let's start off. I'm going to show some of the videos from Twitter first, and we'll kind of lead off with that for folks who haven't been watching the news or social media. So let me kind of lead off with that. Let's see if I can get my little picture-in-picture here to display. Let's see. All right, folks, so this is from Twitter. This is a clip of inside the chambers. Now, of course, this was earlier today, hours earlier. And as you can see, the chambers are empty. And that's the Capitol Police with guns drawn. And you can see the police up there. They've got the doors barricaded. Apparently, that didn't last long because they got in. I'm going to roll down to this video. This is what appears to be Trump supporters. And they are clashing with police. And so that's actually at whatever point inside the Capitol itself. And of course, you can find tons of other video content from that. So let me switch back to us there,
Hey,
Mr.
scroll back
Lowry.
up to that video, the video that you had on top of that one there, Rex, and I want to point something out. I'm pretty
one
sure
here?
this is the case. Yeah, where the Capitol Police had the guns drawn, you know, facing the door. On the back side of that door, I'm pretty confident is where that young girl was shot through the neck by one of the Capitol Police. I think she was on the other side of that door.
Okay, yeah, and so to be clear, you're talking about on the other side of this one, maybe?
Yeah, that one right there, behind all those guys at that door, on the back side of that door is where I believe that she was shot.
Okay, yeah, and look, folks, as far as we know, you know, there's going to be a lot more news coming out, and coverage and all that, but from what we can tell so far, there was only one person shot. Apparently it was a woman. I think, did I read earlier that she did die?
Yeah, I saw the video immediately, like when it happened or whatever, and they were doing CPR on her when they brought her out. And unfortunately, the videos was pretty graphic, and you could actually, I mean, you could see the loss of blood was severe, and she was fading. And by the time they got her outside, I mean, they were doing CPR. Just sad and tragic.
Well, so speaking of the sad and tragic, let's see. let's try to figure out what side we're on this. And if you want, I'll kind of lead off based on this woman getting shot. And condolences to her family, whether she was there for the right reason, the wrong reason, it doesn't matter. You know, from my viewpoint, this shouldn't have turned to violence. So let me be clear. If they're there to protest and they decide to storm the Capitol and risk being beaten by the police, which would be justifiable if you're going to try to storm the Capitol, or risk being arrested, as long as nobody's armed and nobody, let me just say, gets hurt beyond, you know, getting half beaten by the police, because if you're going to go into a fight, be ready for a fight. I'm for protest. Again, if it's for the right reason and nobody gets hurt, shot, etc. I'm a big Second Amendment guy, but, you know, these kind of protests don't need to be a gunfight. They need to be a, let's say, and I'm putting this in quotes, relatively peaceful protest. So,
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I mean, man, this is a tough one, because I don't care who you are. On one hand, there's some sympathy to the plight of people who feel like, you know, they're not being represented. And, you know, then there's the other side of it where you feel like, wait a minute, you know, we shouldn't be doing that. I mean, and then you can fall back on, you know, thank goodness that the framers fought, you know, when they felt like they weren't being represented.
yeah, and let me put this quote up here from Kenneth Jenkins. He said they shot through the door. Kenneth, I'm assuming you've seen video, or Duke, maybe you saw it. I don't know that you've got some kind of confirmation on that. Maybe it would have to be video there. My wife Gina says, okay, why they stormed the Capitol? She hadn't been watching. In her defense, she's been sick all day. That leads right into, Duke, what you were saying. And I want to roll this little video clip. This is of our senator, one of our senators, Bill Cassidy. And I think this about says it all right here. And let me just say this. The congressmen were moved to a secure location. You know, the Capitol buildings have tunnels between them and escape routes, and they do sort of plan for this, at least to get them out. But I want to roll this clip from Bill Cassidy real quick and see what everybody's take is.
There are people who have violently entered the United States Capitol and are attempting to disrupt what is going on, which is supposed to be the peaceful transition of power. This is wrong. It is absolutely wrong. It is un-American, period. They should stop, period. This is about our country. It is not about hooligans.
Are we even going to need...
All right, so let's stop right there. And Duke, I'm going to bring us both up. Let's see if I can do that. There we go. So let's talk about Bill Cassidy's hooligans comment.
I got to tell you, that just pisses me off. It's un-American to not have your day in court, you know, to appeal that you've been wrong. But it goes back to the shows that we had before, that you know, the majority of folks in this country don't feel like you get a fair shake. That's where we're at. And you know whose fault that is? That's his fault, along with Steve Scalise, along with Mike Johnson, along with every jackwagon that's up there in the damn Congress, Democrat and Republican alike. They've brought us to this point. I don't want to hear about hooligans.
Well, let me just disagree with you just a little bit there. You know whose fault it ultimately is?
It's not yours.
Oh, well, hey, full disclosure, I voted for Bill Cassidy.
I did too. But we have been trying. I know the point you were trying to make, but it's a lot of the people that want to sit on the sidelines and have let things get to where they are, where a few people have been fighting and struggling and trying to make things better, and we haven't been enough.
Well, look,
we hadn't been enough.
Yeah, the system's broken. It just is, period. And look, Trump came in and one of his mantras during the campaign was draining the swamp. And that sounds good and it's good for ginning up the base, but we all know there is no fixing that swamp. Draining the swamp's great, and it was a great effort, but there's no fixing that mess and quagmire. Let me just tell you this. Instead of our publicly elected officials, now these folks coming in were unarmed. I think a few of them may have had bats or something like that, but they're unarmed. You have Capitol Police with guns drawn. And thank God, only one person was shot. But what did all of our lily-livered Congress people do? They left. And Cassidy has the gall to call all of us upset people hooligans. And if you go, and I don't care whether you go to Cassidy's post about that on Facebook, on Twitter, it doesn't matter. Go to Steve Scalise's, go to Mike Johnson's. They're getting hammered from the right, from the left, and from the middle. It's like this. Let's see if I can find a couple of comments here.
I mean, look, Rex, we all know all this is just show.
Yeah,
all of us. It's just show. I'll tell you this. I saw Steve Scalise's speech, in which I have it pulled up. I think if I played it, you wouldn't be able to hear it. So, but I'll just tell you, he gave a great impassioned speech. Mike Johnson, right out of the gate, he spoke as well too. And he was eloquent as usual. Mike is a great speaker. They both are great speakers. But you know what? That's all we have had is just nothing but talk, great speeches and no action. Great speeches and no action.
I would argue all talk and no action. You're absolutely right. We need some Congress people in there. We need some people representing us at the local, the state, and especially at the federal level that, pardon the phrase for the ladies in the audience, that have a set of balls that will actually do something. All right? This has been boiling for decades and decades.
And look, all this fake outrage about what's going on. I mean, where were they, with all the BLM and the Antifa riots and all these? I saw some people that, one of them I went to high school with, and she was putting, where do I go to change my party? Where do I go? She was an anti-Trumper from the get-go. But automatically, where do I go to change my party or whatever? Just looking for a reason. But you know what? All that outrage when you had Antifa and BLM occupying cities and burning stuff down, where is that outrage?
Right.
Where is that outrage?
And Kara put a comment, said because not enough people, they don't vote, somebody else's responsibility. I would argue you're absolutely correct, Kara. We've seen the numbers increase, obviously, in the last race. And look, one thing, you can say good or bad about Trump all you want. One thing about it, he brings people to the polls and he brings people out. Whether they're for him or just voting against him, he absolutely brings them to the polls. So that is one improvement. But there's Kenneth put another comment here, says you can, you say drain the swamp can't, or the swamp can't be drained, but it can with events like today. Yeah, Kenneth, it can be drained, but you have to pull the plug and everybody in it has to be eliminated. And you have to start from scratch.
Look, pull up my screen on this. I captured this off Twitter today.
All right, let's see here. That should, let me share your screen. Hold on, assign it to guest 3. Give me a second here. I had this a little bit out of deal, so I got to make this guest 3 here. Bear with me, folks. Guest 3, Duke screen.
There's a picture of back on May 31st, 2020, and all the fires in none other than Washington, D.C.
Right.
That was the riots back then. How Antifa, how quickly we forget. Where was all the outrage?
Oh, you're absolutely right. It's only an outrage when it is or appears to be the right or MAGA supporters, or even if it's Antifa and they're supporting MAGA because they've got another goal. It doesn't matter if it's a mixture of all that. You're right. This is only bad and evil, and we all have to wring our hands if it's us, if it's not them.
Yeah, and now So supposedly, I saw before we came on, I think it was a Twitter post of Rand Paul saying that it looks like the Republicans are going to drop all objections to any of the electoral college states. So basically, what they're saying is they're just going to go in there and rubber stamp the rest of the states.
Yeah.
They're just going to go in there and rubber stamp it. It doesn't matter whether they believed or not. That says to me that they truly didn't believe in the first place.
Right. It is. They were just trying to appease. It's like, look, Mike Johnson, same thing. Finally came out, I think it was finally today, and, you know, said that he was going to object. Yeah, at the last minute after you literally get hammered and pull your own Facebook posts down after you put them up. We have the screenshots. I mean, they're just going along with the flow to try to do what they think they can do to appease their constituents, and hoping that we forget about all this in a few months.
And the thing is, this is real easy. You just do the right thing by the people.
Yeah. Look,
it's that easy.
Mike Johnson, if you had voted against the massive omnibus spending bill and voted against the transgender studies for the Pakistanis, even though it would have gotten rid of the stimulus money promised, you know, back to all of us, I would actually support you in that. But you didn't do that. Instead, you took the easy way out, and your post on Facebook dealt with only the good things in that bill, not any of the negatives when you tried to justify it. Then you pulled your post down. Stupid move there, buddy.
You know what he did, Rex? What he was doing is what every politician that goes to there's a few exceptions, but what Higgins is definitely an exception. Mm-hmm. But what they all do, you go up there and you go along to get along. And that's what's got us in the bind that we're in.
You're right, yeah. Yeah, and I've got Higgins' quote. I was going to play it. It's a soundbite from his town hall last night where he explains why he voted the way that he did, and he stands by his vote absolutely. It's about 3 minutes. I don't know if we want to play it tonight or not, but let me get this quote back up here. Barry Butler's watching. He put up a good quote. It says, Trump has exposed all the corruption and incompetence in our national leadership. You're right, Barry. He's put a big spotlight on it. We all knew it was there. We all talk about it. Yet we just keep letting the same thing go on and on and on and on. And I think we're finally at the tipping point where action is going to be taken. If our politicians won't do it, then we, the people, are going to obviously take action on both sides of the coin.
Well, and to that, Rex, going back to what you were saying about Cassidy, and, you know, the statement of people raiding the Capitol and going in and all what has happened, I mean, just that statement of him of hooligans, you know, my initial response was it just pissed me off and rubbed me wrong. You know, is it right that you should be irritated that we're having rioters or people, you know, in our process, and should we be outraged? Yeah, we should. But where's that outrage when you can't even get an investigation of alleged fraud? And to the people that say, oh, well, you've had 60-something judges that have ruled on hearings. Bullshit. They've not had a bit of evidence presented. It's not been in front of anybody. They've ruled it on technicalities. Oh, you don't have standing here, or maybe if you were standing there, or maybe if you go stand over there, maybe we might hear the case. It goes back to our previous video.
Well, you're right.
The judiciary is broken.
It is very broken. Kenneth Jenkins just commented again, if this was 1775, the Capitol would be smoldering right now. You're correct, Kenneth. And let's also remind our moronic Senator, Bill Cassidy, when he said it's un-American, well, you moron, how do you think our country started? It's the same thing.
It's the exact same thing.
So,
exact same thing.
I'll say this. So far it appears that, with the exception of a few people getting in a scuffle and a few people bruised up, and the one lady that got shot, so far it seems like it's actually been not that destructive. There were some windows broken out of the Capitol building and all that. But one thing about it this time, unlike the picture that you showed of D.C. burning, we all know St. Louis, the whole 9 yards, at least so far there haven't been any private businesses and establishments burned to the ground and looted for zero reason. At least this time the attack and the storming of the building was a public government building. So I'll throw that out there as well.
Well, pull my screen up. And I don't know if you saw this one, you know, and to all those folks that are griping about all these people protesting, where were they when these folks were all hollering for all this crap?
Yeah.
There needs to be unrest in the streets. Your vice president-elect, protests should not let up.
Yeah.
Right there, her words. She said it. Protests should not let up.
Yeah. Oh, well, it's the good for the goose, good for the gander, but only when the goose says it's good for the gander and the gander's not paying attention. I don't know, whatever. Let me switch back over here. I'm just kind of at a loss for words for some of this. I mean, I've got a lot I want to say, but...
well, I'll tell you what, I got a good segue, unless you're ready.
No, go ahead.
Show my screen again. Let's talk about the Viking. We got to talk about the Viking.
Wait a minute. We need to find the picture where he was standing at the lectern, at the podium.
Oh, no, that was Thor. That was Thor.
Folks, these are who entered the Capitol building unarmed. Well, I think he might be carrying a spear, or one of them was. I can't remember. Flags.
No, he's got the official "I like boys" emblem tattooed across his chest on the left-hand side. But oh yeah, he's definitely a Trump guy. And this guy with the yellow sweater there, he's got what is that? The bar and the sickle of the Russian people on there.
Well, now let me say this too, though, because I found the video earlier, and I can play it. It's a couple minutes long, where Thor guy or Viking guy there, he's been at several BLM rallies, actually supporting Trump. So in other words, he was, now whether he was acting or not, I don't know. If he was acting, he did a fine job, and he's been all over the country doing it. Pro-Trump and, God forbid, pro-QAnon or Q at the BLM rally. So in other words, he was there supporting Trump. At least that's what he said over and over and in interviews. So it's hard to figure out who's on what side.
Isn't that coincidental that he was doing interviews supporting Trump? Now, I saw another thing where he was at the Antifa rally in Phoenix, Arizona back earlier this year.
No, now let me be clear. That was May the 5th of 2020, and he was absolutely there and did an interview with the news girl. That's the video that I put in our chat deal earlier. And he was absolutely pro-Trump and thanking Q in that interview. So that's what I'm getting at is. But here's the thing. Let me throw this out there too. Whether Viking guy, yeah, Jake, that's him. Whether Jake or any of the rest of them are planted Antifa actors. If they're planted Antifa actors, then we're supposed to be mad and angry that they stormed the Capitol, right? Because they set us up.
Yeah, and let me just.
But
okay,
go ahead.
Just look right here. You see this? That right there. Actor, voiceover artist.
True.
From Phoenix, Arizona.
True.
That is his job. He is an actor.
Well, or maybe aspiring. But here's the thing. Let me get to my point. If they, let's say they're all actors, if they storm the Capitol, and I can tell you, if you watch some of the Twitter videos and you listen to some of the MAGA people that are clashing with the police outside the building, I can tell you right now, those are MAGA supporters. They're rednecks just like me. I can tell the redneck when I hear one. So not all of them are actors. Let's assume all of these are. So who do we, you can't support both sides. You can't be, oh my goodness, these are Antifa and they're actors. And so now we have to be mad that they stormed the Capitol. But on the flip side, we were all cheering, except for the getting shot part of it. We were all cheering people on when they were storming the castle earlier until everybody remembered, oh, wait a minute, these might be Antifa actors. Let's go look on
Right.
Twitter and see if we can find these people. It's confusing.
No, it's not confusing. You just ain't in the right seat.
I don't know which seat I'm in. I'm sitting here.
Explain it for you?
I'm sitting here going,
Okay, wait.
we have people relying on Q or QAnon, which was literally started as a prank by 4chan, by the way. And I don't know if you've ever dealt or been on 4chan at all or seen any of that. We won't even go down that rabbit hole. So tell me, Duke, help me clarify, where are we at?
I got it. I can tell you. Now, if you were a U.S. senator or you were a congressman, you'd be pissed off that these people came in here and busted up your Trump bashing party.
Well, that
You'd be
and messed
mad.
up lunch. I'm sure they had a late lunch, and oh my goodness, they had to go out through the tunnels.
Absolutely. You're mad because your plans on moving up the ladder have now been delayed by however long it takes for these people to show their ass. The second part of the equation is if you're a person on the outside and it don't matter what party, Republican, Democrat, whatever, you're cheering because you don't care. You feel like government's not representative of you anymore. You know, you can't count on D.C. or Washington or Congress or whatever however you want to describe that bottomless swamp up there. None of that supports you. And that segues off not from just D.C. It comes down to the state levels as well as the local levels. I mean, if you're the Antifa people, I guess you're loving it too because you're getting what you want because now they're always mad trying to burn up everything. And now you got all the conservatives and the Trump people mad. The rhinos are mad. They're bashing Trump and all the Trump people.
So what you're saying is now everybody's mad.
But if you're a MAGA person, you've got no right to be mad about nothing. You shouldn't be mad. You're the bad guy.
Well, and so Kenneth, you got some great comments this evening. Says blaming it on Antifa diminishes the importance of what happened today. That's exactly my point. We got to pick a side. And look, the truth is, it was probably a mixture, because I'm sure there were some Antifa people there. I'm positive there were. But even if they mixed in with the crowd, look, Trump himself, in his video that he tweeted several hours after all this, he encouraged everybody, okay, it's over now, time to go home, people. And he said, and I quote, "I love you." So, was Trump talking
Twitter deleted the account. They
No.
shut it down.
No, they did not. I can still pull it up. So here's the thing. If Trump's the great leader that he is, you're telling me that his people couldn't figure out or advise him on whether these were actual patriots or Antifa. All right? In other words, which is it? We can't have it both ways. Here's where I sit. I am absolutely for the protesters, and I would argue patriots, storming the castle, as long as they didn't go in there and try to kill anybody. And so far as we know, the only person that was killed was, well, one of the people storming the castle. I'm absolutely for it. I don't care if it was a mix of Trump supporters and Antifa actors. And I don't care if they all went and had coffee afterwards. Now the statement's been made. The shot has been sent across the bow in a big-time way. Now, as long as they don't go burn D.C. down, I still continue to support them. Our politicians that ran like cowards, I have no support for them. Zero.
Well, and they're still running, and they're just doubling down on this to run even more. Just whether we had a fraudulent election or whether we didn't have a fraudulent election, obviously half the country believes that we did. And you know what? Nobody in D.C.'s got the spine to do anything about it or to even verify it. They would rather see the house burned down, and I don't mean figuratively the Congress. I'm just saying, you know,
Right.
the house, you know, as you generally say. They would rather see it just totally burn down, collapse, and disintegrate than they would actually try to get to the bottom of it.
Well,
And you'll see that. That's proven by what these guys march back in there as soon as Pence and them get it cleared out and they go back in and start voting, you're going to see that because they're going to just rubber stamp and not even contest the states even after this. If it was the business of the people of this country, they would still be doing that.
Well, let me throw this out there, and you and I have talked about this, in private, but I don't make any bones about it. I blame, the election situation, whether Trump ultimately is going to lose, which honestly, I think he is, or whatever happens. Either way, this whole drama-filled thing is Trump and the RNC's fault. And it's Trump's fault because he's the leader of the Republican Party. And let me explain what I mean by that. The vote should have never even been this close. We haven't had a Republican president win the popular vote in 20-something years. The vote shouldn't even been that close. He lost by, let's use the quote official numbers as of right now. Let's pretend like there's no fraud going on. Let's pretend for just a second. So he lost by about 7 million votes, right?
There's no way you can. There's no way you can even say that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Hear me out. So now, Trump lost by 7 million.
You know mail votes, and you know how that system works.
Well, hold on a minute.
You can say that.
No, I know how the system works in our state. I know how it works in other states as well. All right, but look. Let me finish, and then we'll get into the mail-in ballots. Should have never been 7 million votes. It should have been the other way, because if Trump and the RNC, the Republican Party itself, would have done what they should have the last 4 years, I know they're fighting Russia and blah, blah, blah. Do you know how many people that the Trump administration has on staff to help fight all those things? It's not like Trump himself is fighting those on a daily basis. If the RNC would have done what they were supposed to, then we wouldn't even be having this argument that we're about to have about the mail-in ballots. It wouldn't even been close. He would have won by a blowout. Landslides like the Reagan days.
Yeah, look, as far as I know, the RNC got a pipe bomb today just like the DNC.
Yeah.
They might as well just have put them together and sent one, but that would go against conservatism, I guess. Or
that's a tough call right there. But let's get to the mail-in ballots. Here's a strategic, if I can talk this evening, mistake.
Let me ask you a question, Rex, before you say your strategery. Do you think that things that have happened in the other states with the mail ballots, do you think they could happen in Louisiana? And if you think that they do, why haven't they happened? Why do you believe they haven't happened here?
They could in certain jurisdictions or certain parishes. All right, now.
Well, isn't that the rub in those states that
Fulton
County,
it is,
Georgia,
but let me get to my point about that, and you know where I'm headed because we've already talked about it. Now, let me also clarify this. In Bossier Parish, we're fine. Okay, I have 100% confidence in Stephanie and Jill and the girls in their office. So I'm not talking about Bossier Parish. Let me get to what I'm talking about. We had the COVID deal come up. All right, China virus, whatever you want to call it, and the situation is what it is. The country got, for all intents and purposes, shut down to a large percentage, which means that the mail-in ballots were going to get pushed forward to try to encourage people to vote. Right, wrong, or indifferent, that happened. Trump's mistake and the RNC's mistake was to make a villain out of mail-in ballots. As soon as they did that, I told my wife and a couple of other people, I said, they've made a mistake. Because the mail-in ballots are going to be utilized, so instead of vilifying the mail-in ballots, the Republican Party should have been trying to beat the Democrats at their own dadgum game. And they didn't. And that's the problem. It was a stupid mistake.
I'm going to disagree with you on that because California is your example to your theory. In California in 2016, Nancy Pelosi and all of them ran the table on, the harvesting. Republicans doubled down on it and said, you know what, we're going to beat them at their own game and do it. Well, you know what? They didn't.
But you know what? California's been lost for 25 years. Longer than that. You can't use California. That you got to take the one extreme and the other and drop them out of the equation. So you can't use that argument.
there are Republicans in California.
There
They
are,
have their
but that
strongholds.
state has been gone forever, Duke.
Yeah, but I'm just saying the Republicans said, okay, hey, we can get back what we had and get things to normalcy by adopting the policies of the Democrat Party.
They
and
can't.
They failed.
But that's a dumb
They're not
place.
gonna be able to.
That's a dumb place to do it. They should have gone in some of the swing states that were a lot closer. I'm not saying you are, but for Republicans to use that as a test bed is just stupid. They should have used it in some of the swing states that have come into play. Pennsylvania, now apparently Georgia. Heck, even Texas is closing the gap to going blue.
Maybe so. Maybe so. I'll concede that to you. Maybe that was a bad place to try it at or whatever. But does Louisiana have signature verification?
No. Well, all right. No. Actually, yes.
Whoa.
Whoa. I misspoke. Yes, they do. Oh, yes, they do, Duke. I was on the Board of Election Supervisors for Bossier. If the signature is in question, they pull it up in the system and compare the signatures.
I know, but that's not legal. Is it codified in the law? No, but it is in Georgia and Pennsylvania, and look what happened.
I would argue you can't go by signatures anyway. A, signatures do change, and B, we all know that you can't go by signatures. It's so easy to do. It's so easy to replicate them. I'm a tech guy. It's not hard to forge signatures, folks.
Right, I know that, but the Secretary of State's office, I know, in Louisiana was in favor of it because I worked on this before this debacle even came along. But one, money. Two, around the state, the people around the state in the different parishes that are in Stephanie's position didn't want to do it. They fought it. They had a meeting in early 2019, and the Secretary of State presented the idea, and they all balked at it, and they all cited money and staff to be able to do it. So it didn't get done. But back to my original question to you was that what makes Louisiana any different than the others? To me, the difference is Louisiana is inconsequential for them to do it here. There's no point in even putting the effort into doing it here because they can't count. There's not enough electoral college votes here for it to be worthwhile to risk. But now, given that, you know what, there is no risk, because the truth of the matter is you're not going to have a judge that'll hear the case. You're not going to hear or have a judicial system that's going to take action on it. And you're not going to have a forum for evidence to be adduced and a ruling to be made. What's there to lose? So Dan Bongino, when he said, get ready, this fight is coming to your door, it is. It's going to be on your front doorstep. It
is. And look, I'm going to say this, which will probably raise the hair on the backs of a bunch of Republicans. I'm a limited government guy, especially at the federal level, but this inconsistent every state decides how they're going to do elections deal, I've gotten to where I'm not a fan of it.
I think the Republican Party is dead. I hate to say that. There's been this lukewarm coalition between rhinos and true conservatives, and it's been held together for a long time. I think it's broke now.
Yeah, I think it's been broken, and I agree with you. It is definitely broke now. But that's for a whole other discussion.
That's for a whole other discussion.
All right, well, I'm going to try to kind of cut us a little short, although we are running 40 minutes. I've got to go in and go check on my wife, who is not feeling well today. Fortunately, not COVID. And a few other things, and kind of be domesticated.
Sounds like a plan, and everybody be safe out there, and, pray to the good Lord that we'll get through all this, and we will still have a country and a constitution at the end of this trial. We've been through worse times.
Absolutely. Thanks to everybody that's been commenting, especially Kenneth Jenkins this evening. Lots of good comments. Thanks for everybody watching. Tell your friends. We'll be back in a few days. We're going to see what the national stuff does, and we've got plenty of Bossier stuff to talk about. See y'all later.
Good night.